In this lesson, Holly learns about negotiating with the agents of organizations and other entities. At the start, entrepreneurs are working entirely for themselves, and if they remain sole proprietors or form a corporation with themselves as the sole shareholder, that could remain true for the life of the business. But many people with whom they deal work for a corporation, agency, or other organization. They speak not for themselves, but for some other person or entity. They are agents of a principle. Our economy functions largely through the delegation of authority from principals to agents. In the case of the government, the ultimate principle is the citizenry. Citizens delegate their authority to the legislature, which in turn delegates the authority to purchase goods and services to government agencies such as the Pentagon. Each branch of the military receives its authority through the Pentagon. That purchasing authority is further delegated to a procurement office and finally to a contract officer. Each person or office along the chain of authority is acting as an agent for a principal. The same kind of chain of authority exists within business organizations. For example, General Electric is a large corporation with multiple stakeholders worldwide. The directors and officers who work in corporate headquarters are agents of General Electric as an entity. They delegate their authority to individual business units, such as the Military Systems Division. The Vice President of the Military Systems Division is an agent of the division and the corporation. The authority is further delegated to the Government Contracting Office and finally to an individual sales representative. Each unit in a chain of authority has interests that are distinct from those of the other links in the chain, and each person exercising the authority of her unit has interests that are separate from the unit's interest. For example, at General Electric, the ultimate principal, the General Electric Corporation, has a set of interests, but so do each of the units in the chain and the people who work in those units, all the way down to the procurement officer. And the interests of the units and the people in them may occasionally be inconsistent or even in conflict. To illustrate, let's start at the Department of Defense level. The ultimate principal in the chain, the people of the United States, have numerous interests related to every acquisition. These include high-quality products, competitive prices, reliability of service, ethical integrity on the part of everyone involved. But the department has its own interests as well in the background. For example, the leaders of the department probably want to increase next year's budget, which means that they will need to spend all of this year's budget. They will likely want to protect jobs within the organization. We can expect they would have a desire to enhance the status of the department within government as a whole, and it's reasonable to anticipate that they would want to expand the influence of the department within government. The Pentagon Procurement Office has its interests as well. Of course, people in the Procurement Office will want to satisfy the interests of the Pentagon, but they have an interest in protecting their budget and jobs and ultimately the existence of the office altogether. As we go down the principal agent chain to the Procurement Office, we find the same interests of the ultimate principal. But now there are additional interests of the Procurement Office itself. And we shouldn't forget that the individual people within the office all have their own interests that relate to the contract under consideration, as well as the interests of the Procurement Office, the Department of Defense, and ultimately the people of the United States. And each individual contract office should be considering the interests of the Procurement Office, of the Pentagon, of the government as a whole, and ultimately of we the people. When Holly negotiates with the wholesale buyer, she's effectively negotiating with two sets of interests: those of the grocery store chain that the buyer represents, and those of the buyer himself. Officially and legally, only the interests of the grocery store chain count. Those of the buyer shouldn't enter into the process at all, but they do. In fact, his interests become entangled with those of the chain in subtle and sometimes imperceptible ways. As we mentioned in Lesson 3, corporate agents have interests of their own. The buyer has all the interests we discussed in Lesson 3 of this course. He has food, shelter, and safety needs, the need to be accepted, the need for self-esteem, and the need to achieve his potential. These are the needs that Abraham Maslow identified in the hierarchy of needs we discussed in Lesson 3. An overarching and ultimate need is the need for meaning, to be involved in something purposeful, to count for something. Like the third worker in the story in Lesson 3, the grocery store buyer needs to have a sense that he is building a cathedral, not just busting rocks. In Lesson 3, we touched on the importance of creating a chart of the interests of a negotiating partner, such as the grocery store shown here. Holly would be wise to create a similar chart, such as this one, showing the buyer's interests. If she understands the buyer's interests well and how they relate to those of the grocery store, she'll more likely propose options that resonate with him, options that he will want to make part of the deal. Whether Holly is negotiating with the bank, the jar supplier, a venture capital firm, or a website developer, she'll be dealing with agents, people with interests of their own who have a fiduciary responsibility to represent the interests of the principal they represent. When Holly prepares for these negotiations, she needs to think about the interests of both the agents and the principals they represent. In the final lesson of this introductory course, we'll talk about negotiating price. Thanks for watching.